Great. Hi, my name is Jennifer Lee. There's supposed to be feedback.
Oh, hi everyone. I'm James Lang.
Thank you for coming to this presentation. Great. Thanks for being patient with all the AV. So thank you so much for coming out. I know everyone has a very busy schedule. We are the partners at Figure. We're a San Francisco-based architecture firm, and our team is comprised of our designers here. We have designers working with us from the East Coast, even abroad, and because of them, we are here to share the project that we've developed with the Gualala Board of Directors and the Rebuild Committee. This has been an amazing, year-long experience so far, and we wanted to pay gratitude to our design team. And our further design team, I mean, we can't be here without a list or a larger group of experts, engineers, designers, who have taken on very specific disciplines regarding the Rebuild project. And we're in great hands. They have a ton of experience working on various civic projects and community projects around Northern California. And so as architects, when we approach a project, we're never starting from scratch, right? And we know that the former Gualala Community Center was a beloved site. It was a place for everyone in this area and the greater Mendocino County. And when we started the project, we knew that there was a very sort of symbolic nature of the gable form. We're in, a structure like this, even at the Gualala Arts Center, the gable became kind of a starting point for us. And we approached the project thinking about not only form, but function. How does the building actually operate? Who's going to be using it? How can we make it better than it was before? And then third part of any project is also the site. As you know, this is an amazing site, which we'll go into, and sort of the potential opportunities involved. So looking beyond Guala, we all know that it's the gateway to Mendocino. It has the opportunity to sort of welcome as you're driving by on Highway 1, but it's also part of a larger network of community centers. This is a mapping showing 16 other community centers currently in Mendocino. And as you can see, they've all developed over different parts of time. They are there's a sampling of them that are rehab projects, renovation projects. They were formerly schools or barns. There's a couple of newer buildings like the CV Star. But ultimately, what we found out is that there is kind of a coastal vernacular with this gable structure with sort of simple construction, exterior wood siding, simple geometries. Programmatically, we were fortunate enough to get sampling and feedback from the various surveys that were submitted in by you all, and also the feedback that we got from the various town hall meetings last year. This pie chart is showing the various types of events from 2019. And what this pie chart is showing is it's important to know that that community center was not just for one particular event. It had to be multi-purpose, right? Which is inherent in a community building. And you could see that Pay and Take had about 20% of that year's sort of major events. There were instructional classes like yoga, ballroom dancing, senior lunches, Lions Club, a lot of governmental meetings, and obviously the quinceañeras, the graduations, and the plays. And so as we were designing this building together, we wanted to make sure that we were trying to incorporate as many voices as possible and thinking about as many uses as possible. Third, We're talking about the site. So as you can see in this aerial view, this is Highway 1 right here. This is the existing annex, the Gualala Country Inn, and then this is the site that we're operating within. The building was built in the 50s, and then the annex came later. But because of that, and because of the parking, we saw that there was an opportunity to maybe rethink about its situation on the site, and how can we capture greater views towards the ocean, and how can we make a greater connection to the diversity of nature that was around us, the ocean, and also the forest. So this is an aerial view of the site itself. You could see how it's just tucked away in the northeast corner right there. There's the USPS and then the Sunstrom Shopping Center just to the north of this image. In our proposal now, we are working under the purview of a rebuild, which allows by code a 10% increase in the floor area of the former community center. And we've been in conversations with the planning department early on, and we have the opportunity to stay within the confines of the site, but we're able to shift the building down to take advantage of the views towards the Pacific without having to go through coastal commissions. So this was a major win for us because, as you know, coastal commission takes a long time. We probably won't be around, when it actually starts, but we were able to, by shifting this southeast, we're able to also conceal the parking that is much needed and necessary, but really take advantage of this new plaza that we've been working with our civil engineers and our landscape architects to really make this an outdoor community park, right? And this would start to frame the relationship between the new building, the ocean, but also create a new, more intimate courtyard with the annex that's there. And this would be a multi-purpose space. The landscape design has a series of these soft berms featuring drought-tolerant, wildflowers, and sort of allowing the topography to sort of take shape. There would be outdoor furniture, but it would also be multi-purpose. That outdoor space would accommodate farmers markets, pay and take operations, and so on. There would be also a more immediate drop-off off Center Street. And then we're also considering adding 65 additional parking spots for overflow, which historically there was never enough parking. And so we thought this would be an opportunity to sort of incorporate that in a more organized manner and provide more ADA parking spots than before. And also address some of the other issues in the site that were that needed to be addressed. And then one other aspect that we wanted to share and clarify was part of this rebuild, we're also thinking about the project as a community resilience center. And this definition is from the state definition. What we've discovered is there are many funding opportunities as well if this building were to comply with these requirements. And so this is not just a community center, but it's also a place for emergencies in the event that people need to come together. And part of these requirements that are involved are being ADA compliant, gender neutral restrooms, other infrastructural items that are fitting with today's standards, backup power generation, potable water storage, etc. And so by doing this, we'll go into more detail about the building, but that just allows us to broaden our funding opportunities as well. And now James will walk us through the interior.
Okay, I will talk about the plan organization. for the building. So from a very high level, the building is composed of essentially two buildings in one. To the bottom of the page there, you can see what is a large assembly hall. Separating that from the service bar to at the top of the page is a gallery. And that gallery is the main circulation artery through the building. And so that provides a kind of north-south axis through the building. And most of the supporting service programs are on the top of the page, which is to the east, and then the assembly halls are on the other side. So that's from a overall view how the building is organized. We can go to the next slide. So first talking about the assembly hall. This assembly hall is a flexible space for large assemblies. Part of what makes it unique is that it's capable of being subdivided into two spaces. So what you're seeing here is an operable divider, a partition, that can help split the hall into a medium hall and a large hall. And that flexibility was important because a lot of times there might want to be multiple events taking place of different sizes. In this particular plan image, we're showing something like a dinner, like a crab feed in the large hall, and a movie screening in the medium hall. But you can certainly imagine that many other activities, types of activities could occur. If the operable slider is pulled back, it becomes a singular space in which it can accommodate a much larger audience. And so another aspect of this assembly hall is on the top of the page, you can see lining that east side wall is a continuous line of hall storage. So tables, chairs, a movable stage system are all stored in there. And so they're very easily accessible. We understand that the center is operated by volunteers. So we try to make it easy for them to pull things out, put things away. So that's quite important. And we're making sure that there's enough room for all of the storage needs for these events. So that's the assembly halls at a glance. And this sort of shows you an example of what a movable stage looks like. So the stage essentially, when in storage, are folded up. They're on wheels, and they would be wheeled into the storage so that the space itself is much more flexible. When you need to have a performance, you can wheel them out, unfold them, and essentially create through, by tiling them, a larger stage, which the dimensions are also flexible to the needs. Okay, so moving on to the service bar programs. What you'll see anchoring the service bar on the two sides is a flex room and meeting room. Now, flexibility is really at the heart of the design. And so if the assembly halls are accommodating very, very large audiences, then the flex room and the meeting room are used for smaller groups. So even though we're calling that a meeting room, it could be used as, for instance, a yoga room, a classroom for after school activities. And the flex room is right off of the kitchen. So it can be a cafe if there's a luncheon that's a smaller crowd. That's a perfect space to have direct access to the kitchen without needing to take up the entire assembly hall. So again, flexibility is at the core of how we program the building. Now, moving into the center of the service bar, you'll see a kitchen with a lockable pantry, and we'll go into more detail about this space. There is a janitor's closet immediately adjacent as well. Moving on, you can see that in terms of bathrooms, we have a unisex bathroom and two single-use restrooms. One that is off of the flex room that can be accessed from the outside in case of outdoor activities, and also has access directly from the flex room. And we'll also go into more detail about the restrooms in a little bit. Continuing to move to the left of the page, there is a sort of service corridor that leads to a storage room and an office for staff. So that rounds out the service bar programs. And just for comparison's sake, I think it's very important for everyone to understand, well, this new community center, how does it compare to the old? The previous, so if you look at that first set of columns, that describes the size of the previous community center. The main hall of that previous center was around 2,400 square feet, and that includes the stage area. Its occupancy was around 165 people. And then for reference, this room, that sign over there says 158 occupancy. So we kind of get an idea. With the new hall, combined assembly halls, that is has an area of almost 3,500 square feet, which has an occupancy of 232. If we were to split the halls, you can see that the large and medium halls accommodate 136 and then 96 respectively. And then just going down to the flex room and meeting room, 34 and 26 people. So you can see we really created a series of public spaces, community spaces that range from small to medium to large to extra large. So that, and just in terms of pure numbers, it's about a 40% increase in size in terms of the assembly hall compared to the old community center. Okay, now we're gonna go to bathroom kitchen.
I have the task of describing the bathrooms because we know everyone's really curious about these special rooms. So, this is let's talk about the big room, the multi-stall room. There are 6 gender-neutral bathroom stalls. Each of these are about 3 feet by 5 feet. We're showing 3 sinks, 1, 2, 3. And gender-neutral bathroom partitions, they're growing more common in commercial settings like airports, schools. And why we decided to do this was there was also, as we mentioned earlier, the Resilience Center requirement, but also it's a way for us to gain a little bit more space, right? And kind of compress all of these items so that we can gain more space elsewhere. And I want to show you. So normally, like growing up, going to school, when we did have separated restrooms, there's usually like a 1-foot gap, right? Which is fine if you're separated. But what we're trying to propose is to provide kind of your own little room. So the gap between the bottom of the door and the floor is only a 1/2 inch, right? And they would go floor to ceiling. The doors would have an occupancy indicator. And we're also thinking about making the restroom door glazed so that you can kind of see what's happening inside. And these are attempts to give as much privacy as possible when you enter a multi-stall. So they will not look like this, and we are trying to make it look like the image to the right. Moving inwards, if you do want more privacy, you can go into a standalone unisex restroom, which again, going back to the Resilience Center, we are introducing a shower for emergency use. There's also a changing table for families right behind the store. And if we go to the right, this is another single-use family bathroom that also has a changing table right behind the store. And as James mentioned, in the event that there are exterior programs, outside programs, and someone wants to use the restroom, this door would be open probably by keypad. So I hope that gives a little bit more clarity about the multi-stalls, and we can definitely go into more detail later. And now about the kitchen. So the previous kitchen was about 270 square feet. This kitchen now is about 550. But we've been working with a kitchen consultant and members of the community to really understand the use of designing a functional commercial kitchen for all the events that can take place. There's so within the kitchen, the double action door, there's the cook range, the oven, then there's a service counter to the flex room that allows the passage of food there, center prep table, there's a hand sink, a prep sink, and then just to the left, there's 2 sets of refrigerator freezers that are lockable. And then also there would be a 3-comp sink with a dishwasher. So the messy areas are kind of isolated in one zone. And then there would also be a lockable pantry. So we can store all the abundance of ingredients and things like that. And then right next to it would be the janitorial closet that's currently in a mop sink closet that has a water heater. And then all of the services, this is centrally located so that it would be easy to sort of maintain the rest of the building. All right, now we're going to go to the fun stuff. The images are way better to look at, so.
I will try to walk through the experience of approaching and entering the building. So this is we're calling this the south, but it's kind of a southeast facade of the building, the elevation of the building. Here you can really see how the building is composed of 2 volumes, the gabled volume that houses the assembly halls, and that gable really paying homage to the entrance of the previous community center, the iconic gable. And to the right of that, the flat roofed service bar that is sort of playing a supporting role. And the space in between the two is where you'll find that gallery hallway that is the central artery. We can move to the next slide. Rotating around to the west face of the building, immediately behind this image would be the Pacific Ocean. So as you saw earlier in the site plan, the building has been pulled southward to give it more exposure to the ocean. So we imagine this space in front of the building to be, again, multi-use, flexible. Here we're showing a farmer's market taking place. There'll be seating, there'll be landscaping. The pavement there'll be a combination of different pavements, but allowing for vehicular traffic for farmer's market stalls to set up. All of those things have been considered and accommodated. And what you see here is more generous openings on that west side. And so here we're showing a 3-panel window or door that slides open, that allows that inside-outside connectivity, and as well a view to the ocean. Okay, we can keep going. So this is now, you're inside the gallery hallway in between the service bar and the assembly hall. We're actually looking back towards the main entry towards the south. What you see here is both a circulation space, but also we're calling it the gallery because we thought this would be an opportunity to use the space as a kind of art gallery. It can showcase local artists. We know there's a vibrant art community in Gualala. As well as, there's a kind of deep and rich history in the town. So it could be kind of a historical exhibition as well. So between kind of temporary exhibitions and a permanent sort of showcase, I think there's an opportunity for the community center to just showcase that history. And then, one more thing, to say that this space is graced by a series of skylights on top. And now this creates a very kind of soft, diffuse light in that space. But the kind of baffles or soffits in between are also housing a lot of the mechanical and structural systems that tie the two buildings together. So it's a sort of two-in-one function. Okay, we can keep going. Moving to the inside of that flex room. Here you can see we're looking westward to that ocean view. The curvature of that volume, we think, is a generous gesture both outside as indicating that this is the entry, but also on the inside, it creates a sort of panoramic experience viewing towards the ocean and to the landscape to the southwest. This room as well is graced by a very large 8-foot dome skylight. Here in this image, we're showing its use as a cafe. So whether you're a visitor or a local, you can come here, get a drink from the kitchen, and enjoy the ocean view. Moving to the other end of the service bar, this is that smallest public amenity, which we're calling a meeting room. This room will be technology enabled. It will have a conference screen, Zoom capability, all the things that are more and more common in a community facility. But at the same time, it can be used, we think, as a classroom, perhaps as a yoga room or sort of other smaller activities as well. Okay, and then finally, to go to an image of the assembly hall. This is really the heart and soul of the building. In many ways, as the hall was also kind of the heart of the old community center. So here you can see that it is a very tall space with skylights. You can see in this image, we're showing dining tables laid out in that space. So maybe a coastal seniors crab feed. What you see, that horizontal beam in the center is the supporting structure for the operable partition below. So a series of folding doors can deploy and separate the space. Above that supporting structure is insulated glass. It's very hard to see in this image. So the glass, in combination with the partition doors, provides an acoustically sealed separation between the two spaces. Acoustics is very, very important. So all of the kind of wood-colored material above the white datum are acoustic materials. They absorb sound. So that's a very important consideration. And so with that, I think that's where we are in the design. I think it's very important to, I think, reiterate that we arrived at this design through a highly collaborative process with the board of directors, with the rebuild committee, and the community stakeholders were involved and heard from. The storied institutions of the community, not limited to pay and take, coastal seniors. We've heard from all of these stakeholder groups, their needs, and we've attempted to create a flexible building that can accommodate all of those, different requirements and priorities. And so we're incredibly grateful for this opportunity to work on this. And this is where we are in terms of design. I'm going to hand it off to Kevin Evans to talk a little bit about contractor selection.
Thank you, James and Jennifer. We could not have done this whole project without their help. So can we give another round of applause to James and Jennifer? Thank you so much. Yes, my name is Kevin Evans, and I had the good fortune of being the president when the building burned down on February 2023, and have worked with a great group of people to get to this point. You heard a lot about the rebuilding committee. Well, I want to introduce them personally because I owe a lot to them, because it's their energy that created what you're seeing today. Kenny Jowers represented the business community in Gualala. Jamie Sundstrom represented the board, but also the realtors and the real estate companies in Gualala. Dave Spock represented GMAC, so he represented the government side. Leslie Bates represented not only the community center as the main scheduler of the facility, but she is also intimately involved in RCMS. And so she works closely with their group, and she was a great asset to have on our committee. Adrian Adams, he was an expert in civil engineering and provided so much value to our committee. And we thank him so much for his due diligence to make this project a success. Dee Williams represented the board of directors, and she had the hardest task of all. She was our secretary. So she had to figure out what we were doing in the meetings. Michelin Kirby White, no introduction needed. Meninoma Health Alliance, and involved in just about every meaningful project on the South Coast. So we were very lucky to have her join us. And Robert Ramers represented the Coastal Seniors. So we could not have done it without this team. It's hard to believe that it's been 1 year that we actually had our town hall here. And that was when we first launched the idea to all of you that there is a plan to rebuild the community center. And you provided a lot of excellent information at that meeting that James and Jennifer alluded to, that it's that input that is what's created the beautiful structure today. But we couldn't have done it without our board of directors, and I know that they're very shy and very humble. So I'd like to give a big shout out, if we can give them a round of applause after I introduce them all. President Nancy Gastonaway, Karen Russell, first vice president, David Fouts, the man with the checkbook, the treasurer, Janet Loxley, Sarah Williams. What am I missing? Oh, and Jamie again. Jamie wears many hats, and so is Dee. So Dee and Jamie were served on both roles. Can we give them a big round of applause? Now we get to the tough part. And I know there's been a lot of speculation and a lot of questions. How are we going to pay for this building? How much does it cost? Are we getting our value? We are. As James and Jennifer mentioned in the introduction, the actual square footage that the County of Mendocino identified for that building was somewhere around 6,600 square feet. We were able to get a 10% bump on that. So we're about 7,400 square feet that we're building. It's not a mansion. It's not a palace. It's just a recreation of what we all loved in Gualala, and that's our community center. But we are taking full advantage of what the county is giving us, and that's some added space. And as James and Jennifer pointed out in their discussion, what's the two most important things that you need in a facility? One is a kitchen, and two is storage. And I think they nailed it in creating both those. So we have identified a need to hire a general contractor. And it was mentioned, thanks to all of you that responded, we had 14 general contractors identified as possible candidates to rebuild our community center. James and Jennifer sent out packets to all of them to see who might be interested in bidding on this project. We didn't give them any dollar amounts. We didn't give them budgets. We said, you're the experts. You plan it. You tell us how much it's going to cost. Of the 14, we only had 4 people respond. But oddly enough, we were very, very lucky because 2 of them were local contractors and 2 were out-of-town contractors. So we were able to get a good cross-section and understanding of what it's going to cost to build this facility, both from a local level and a regional level. The contract interview committee and the architects reached out to the 4 general contractors and invited them for an interview. I will tell you the interview was great. Everybody was excited about this project. They couldn't say enough good words about the project, about the work that James and Jennifer put in, but more importantly, how we captured the input that all of you had on what you would like to see in this new facility. And you saw it today in the presentations. So after we did the interviews, we asked the general contractors to go back to look at the 100% design draft plans and tell us how much it's going to cost to build that building. Now, I don't know how many of you have done a remodel lately. I don't know how many of you bought your homes many, many years ago, but I'm here to tell you right now, we can't build this building for $300 a square foot. It won't happen. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, here's the hard facts. Unfortunately, we had one general contractor decide that based on their work schedule, they weren't able to really put in a responsible bid to get the job done when our community needs it. We're not identifying which contractor is who. We're not telling you who the local contractor is, nor the out-of-town contractors. But what we want you to understand is how completely close in their bids all 3 contractors were. There's a $200,000 difference between the 3 contractors. And that is a testament to our architects and the plans they put together because they were so thorough. This is what you get. You get 3 contractors bidding a project that is going to be over $7 million. One of the things that we had to consider as as the interview committee was how long is it going to take to build the building? We all want it done yesterday. So we looked at that and we compared it. Obviously, the 14 to 16 months general contractor is very attractive. So is the 15 month, because that means we will all see it hopefully sometime around the end of or the beginning of 2026. All 3 of our general contractors indicated that they can start the job within the first quarter. So we're excited about that. You can see we wanted to find out if they were able to make or construct a building our size, and we also wanted to see if they had worked with nonprofits. With that in mind, the contractor or the interview committee recommended contractor number one. We're not going to tell you who that is because of the fact that we've got a letter indicating that they want to do the job, but until we have a signed contract, we're not going to issue their name. But everybody's been notified. We were very lucky to have some excellent general contractors. Now the question is, how are we going to pay for it? We intentionally did not include in the pricing here what the profits were for each one of the general contractors, because they are different, from 3% up to 9% profit margin. But that is something we took into account when we went ahead and made the selection and recommendation to the board of directors. Yes, there is insurance money, and we also have early donations that we received, and we're somewhere in the ballpark of about $2 million. Our architects have indicated that once and James can touch on it real quick, once we get a general contractor online, then we're able to go into value engineering, and they will take a look at exactly what we're proposing and where there might be some cost savings. We're anticipating that that could be about $1.5 million to a $2 million savings from what we're planning. We also we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Jared Huffman's office contacted us about a community, community project grant that the Appropriations Committee is acting on June 11th. We submitted an application. Each representative is allowed 15 people that they can recommend to be funded by this federal grant. And I'm happy to tell you that we are one of the 15. So it's highly competitive, but we think that we have a good story here in Gualala and the Sea Ranch. So what we're going to do is keep our fingers crossed and hope they contact us on June 11th or shortly thereafter. We did request $2 million as well for that grant. As James mentioned, and I'll quickly get off the floor here, there are other grant opportunities as well. The state has a resiliency grant that we can reach out to. There's also other provider grants that we can look at as well for senior services, for health services, for emergency services. We're going to do that. We're going to reach out to anyone and everyone to see what our grant opportunities might be. But we can do it with the team that we have assembled. And I want to thank all of you for your support. And you received the cards, or there were cards on your seats. We're starting our capital campaign, and we will be reaching out to all of you. I'd like to introduce James again, touch real quick on what value engineering is, and then thank you very much for your time and for coming out tonight.
Thanks, Kevin. I'm just going to touch upon what value engineering is very quickly, because that may be an esoteric term for some of you. So value engineering, or we like to call it VE, is really a process, a systematic process that identifies areas in a construction project to reduce overall costs. And the important qualification is without compromising quality or functionality, right? So we will be looking for equivalent things that cost less. So as an example, the areas of analysis include material versus labor costs in various construction scope. So if we're talking about materials, that might include things like decking, siding, casework, roofing, skylights, windows, doors, flooring, acoustic panels, kitchen equipment, HVAC, lighting, AV. I can go on. There are literally hundreds of things that we will look at. And in every case, there is both a product that we'll look at and alternate products that function similarly but cost less, and also vendors. Certain vendors will sell the same product for less or more, so we'll find that as well. So that's on the material side. On the labor side, we're going to be looking at various subcontractors that are doing various scopes, assuming that they're all qualified for the job, but they might have different costs for their labor. So we're going to make a selection and optimize on that. We're also looking at installation processes, and that's directly the labor associated with the material items, right? So the cost to install window, the cost to install siding. It's less expensive to just nail something than to perhaps create a complex attachment method, right? So for every product and material, we're also looking at simplifying installation to reduce labor costs. And then finally, to say it's Figure's intent to work very closely with the board of directors, rebuild committee, and the contractor to cut about $1 to $1.5 million out of the construction costs. And so once that is compounded with things like profit overhead contingency, it will be the number that Kevin mentioned previously, 1.5 to 2 million out of the total project cost. So this is, we're in the middle of that process, and we are very confident that we can hit this. And so, yes, I think we're on a good track. And so with that, I'm gonna introduce Jamie to talk about next steps.
Thank you. So it's been a long year sitting here. I'm caught up in the presentation. So I see a lot of familiar faces and new faces. We are here tonight in a really unique position. The Gualala Community Center has raised money and we've given it out. We've given it out scholarships. We maintained our donations to the food service, to the food banks all throughout the pandemic. We didn't lower, even though pay and take, our main source of revenue, had shut down. We didn't stop our funding and we didn't reduce our funding. We kept giving that out. So we find ourselves tonight in a very unique position of raising money for ourselves for the first time since 1954. So we've identified that we would like to raise a significant amount of money, and that's $4 million. As you saw from the construction cost sitting right around 7, we're going to try to optimize that down to 6. We have 2. Our goal is to raise $4 million to make this a reality. And I really think we can do that. We've identified 3 pillars in which we're going to use to generate those revenues. And that is through direct donations, fundraising, and grants. The grants, a lot of the components we see in the build have allowed us now to be able to apply for these grants. They're competitive. They are private and public governmental grants. So we feel like for the first time ever, we have a strong representation in that arena. And then fundraising efforts, we have a number of things in the works with our capital campaign committee. And we've already done some of that. Then direct donations, we've already started to receive generous donations from our community. But now we really need to become intentional, focused, tracking what we've raised, and asking you for your time, generosity, and support. We want everyone to know that we need you and we are grateful to have you. So be looking to donate. We have the postcards with the QR that'll take you to our website. But throughout the community, as we move forward, please reach out, and hopefully we'll have some good PR so you know exactly how to reach out to us, whether you want to write letters of support for our grants, if you want to do calling of our representatives to ask them to support our grants that are being applied for, if you want to help with bake sales, golf tournaments, membership drives, there's something that you can do, and we would certainly appreciate it if we all put our shoulder to the grindstone together. I really think we can do this. So I am going to turn it back over and we're going to do a walkthrough of the model. Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna try to do a live walkthrough of the model. This is unrehearsed, so we're gonna try our best. So stop sharing here.
Oh, there it is. There we go. Yay. Okay.
It's a little meta here.
Vertical or horizontal?
I think for everyone,
Yeah. Sorry.
Stay the way you are. Okay.
Okay, let's start over here towards the entry, actually. Okay, so you can see here, this is the southeast entry. This is a 5-foot awning that's 8 foot off of the ground. In case of a storm, this will provide additional shelter from the rain. This projecting eave also is projecting almost 11 feet beyond the building wall. What it starts to do is become a covered porch. And the ocean is in that direction. So you can see here alongside with the decking that's on the ground, it really becomes a nice space for respite, for sitting, chatting, with that generous connection to the ocean. Additionally, here in sort of the landscaping, you can see our landscape designer, Teramoto, has designed these landscape areas that are full of indigenous plants, drought tolerant, and then in the sort of plaza spaces, there are timber benches for sitting. Sure. One more thing, here's, you can see that flex room with the curved window and curved space beyond. And then if you peek really kind of in there, that is the gallery hallway that skewers the building. So I'm actually now gonna attempt to open the building. So give me 1 second. Now you can take a peek inside the assembly hall. Here we have a children's dance performance happening on that portable stage. The hall has been combined into one space. And yeah, so we hope that after the presentation, you come up here and take a look, take a peek inside the model. Great.
Great, thank you. So I'd just like to thank again Karen and Jennifer and James and Kevin and Jamie for all of the information that you provided to us this evening. We're now going to open up the floor for a Q&A session. And we are going to use a microphone so that the questions are captured in the Zoom recording. Oh, you're going to... And if Kevin and James and Jennifer, if you want to come up here. Yep.
My name's Rio, and my main concern and way I participate with this project is through the farmers market. I'm an organic farmer, and I would just like to start by complimenting the architects on this incredible design. It's beautiful, very accommodating. I'd also like to thank the community center for, it looks like the farmers market has been accommodated in the design, which is wonderful, and it looks beautiful. My only concern is during the construction process, has it been considered how we will fit into the space still, or where we still have a place during those 2 years?
That's a great question. And I think the logistics of phasing, we're also needing to kind of dovetail into Caltrans as well and the annex, the pay intake. So there's a lot of other stakeholders that also want to know how they're going to fit in within the construction timeline. This would be a topic that we would talk to our GC about, and potentially we can host the farmers market in the other parcel where we saw the parking area as an alternative, but we would need to make sure that the site for construction, the staging area is like clearly defined so it's safe and we're not in the way. But we would definitely try to figure out how to still keep things going as construction is still happening. Oh.
Can we change it? Wait, I'll repeat questions if need be.
My name is Barry Weiss, and I have a statement and a question. The original community center, every nail in it was pounded by somebody in the area, and it would be great if the chosen contractor was a local contractor with local labor. So, having said that, I've heard a couple of things that I think one of them was answered, that there wasn't going to be a health department approved kitchen in this design, but it looks like there is. And I also heard that senior lunches won't be returning to the community center when it's rebuilt.
Sure. Oh, it's sort of working, not quite. Yeah, so thanks for asking that very important question. As you all know, the community center has a long history and relationship with coastal seniors. We have been providing, consistent monthly funding for their Meals on Wheels program as well as for their food bank. They have been involved in every step of the process through the rebuilding committee and also with the kitchen subcommittee in the planning, right? As James and Jennifer mentioned earlier, the goal is to create a multi-use, multi-purpose building but taking into consideration the needs of the different organizations and groups and individuals that we anticipate using this. Given that, we have considered coastal seniors' needs. I also have firsthand knowledge of their programming because I served as their director for 3.5 years. And I understand the importance of their programming in the organization, and it's something that I hold very dear to my heart, as does the rest of the board and the rebuilding committee and our membership. We have communicated to coastal seniors last August, actually, that they will be able to continue to use the facility once it's reopened for their weekly lunches, for their Meals on Wheels prep and distribution. They'll also have use of the facility for their monthly fundraisers or however frequently they want to have fundraisers for other events. And they'll also have access to the meeting room and conference room for board meetings or for other small meetings that they may need. In addition, they'll be provided with locked storage space in the pantry and also in the kitchen, and that's being provided so that they can meet their funding requirements. They have to keep their food locked. As you could have seen from the diagrams, right? Plenty of prep space within the kitchen. It's much larger than the previous kitchen. And they'll also have storage space in that kind of non-food storage area, if you will, for things like their, food warmer or other supplies that they may need in order to help support the programming that they'll have in that facility. So we're excited about continuing the relationship. Again, it's something that we truly value and we recognize it as a need in the community. And so we're going to continue that collaboration and cooperation in the future. Welcome.
Is that my concern also with the kids? And if it's going to be, if it, part of the, I've been here over 20. Spaghetti. The spaghetti dinners, the corned beef and cabbage, the Thanksgiving dinner. I think that food is most central in not just the coastal seniors, but the other groups, that if the kitchen isn't going to be able to be used by caterers and for Christmas parties and quinceañeras and whatever, I would be terribly disappointed. So I'm hoping that that continues.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Absolutely. This is a community center, and the whole reason that we're rebuilding it, right? The reason that it should exist is so that groups and organizations and individuals in our community have access to it. That kitchen is going to be available for the other nonprofit organizations in the community, for individuals, for, we've talked a little bit about some of the programming that we would love to see once it's reopened, pop-up dinners. If there are local chefs who need a commercial kitchen for some reason, right, they could use that. If the school wants to have a cooking class for the kids, or if they want to hold a fundraiser or a bake sale, right, the kitchen's going to be available for those types of groups and for everyone in the community.
These are a series of questions from Sandy Hughes. She says, great job. Just a couple questions. The old assembly hall held 165. The new assembly hall will hold 136, according to your slide. I thought it was larger than that. What's the number? 232. Is that number also with the stage up?
So those occupancy numbers, as you could see there, those are defined by the state assembly of occupancy. So we're taking the net square footage, dividing by 15 square feet per person. That gives us a little bit of flexibility, whether there's tables and chairs or just, standing room only. But yes, as James mentioned, we are increasing the capacity by 1.4 times. So that area would be reduced if we had a stage and depending on the size of the stage.
Okay, there's a couple more. She said 232 in the main assembly hall. That was it. Combined hall, that's what the medium and large together. And then she asked, does the flex room / cafe open up to enlarge the assembly hall? No, okay. More. As to restrooms, what is meant by glazed doors on the restrooms?
Yeah, from some of our conversations, I don't know if they're going to be able to see the doors in this room, but it would be a door that has a window. So you could see into the room before you enter. If you don't feel comfortable going into that room, you can go to the other unisex enclosed room on the other side of the building.
Yeah, just to clarify, right? So it would be looking into the main room, not into each individual stall room.
So you can see the sinks. Okay. And that answers the second question she had. Is there documentation available to the public showing the requirement for unisex restrooms? I think that's for the grants. It's for grants. Okay. Will the architect be on site during construction?
Yes, yes, we will be. Will you plan to be here at least once a week? And we'll we'll work with the general contractor on that construction schedule, but we will have a presence here weekly.
Back of the room.
A recommendation for the farmers market, because originally when we started doing vaccinations, we used the community center, and when we quickly, for other reasons, actually went to the firehouse. And the firehouse has, they have, let the vaccinators do everything from RCMS. They had the crab dinner there. So maybe that is an alternative to look into for the farmers market. There's plenty of parking along off the main road, because I know not this past weekend, but the weekend before, when there was the farmers market, everybody was parked in Highway 1. A lot of the people didn't even know about the other parking. So the town got really busy and people crossing. So maybe during that construction period, to look for an alternative spot for the farmers market that works for everybody.
I have a question about the shower access in the more private single-use restroom. It's billed as being only for emergency use for the resiliency center. How is that shower access going to be maintained, blocked, whatever, so that you don't have random people coming in and using the shower?
That's a great question. I think we'd have to talk to the operations team to figure out how that would work. We could potentially have a lock on the shower if needed, but that door into the restroom, it would be functionally, like you could still use it on a day-to-day. But that's a great concern that we should look into in the event that we want to kind of control when that shower is being used.
Hi, Donna Bishop, the 22 years managing the Gualala Farmers Market. And yeah, long time. Well, one of the things, several times, maybe a few, more than a few, we have had to move the market, and it has been an absolute disaster. And nobody could find us. So we want to work everything we can, and the community center knows with us. we will work whatever we can to keep where because we've been identified with that spot for over 22 years. And so we can work our space and make it work. However it is during construction, and anything we can do to help anybody, we certainly will. But we have checked into other options, and they are just absolutely were not acceptable, and it was a waste of our time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dan Lewis here. Couple of things. Have you looked at roof and hardscape runoff issues and what the soil substrate is? I know it's pretty well permeated by the local gopher population, but which is prodigious. And the second question I had, again, relates to that same area that the farmers market uses or will be using. What is the substrate going to be underneath that? It looked like it would be hardscape, and these people are going to be standing for hours. If it's paved, that might be a handicap.
Thank you for your question. The grading and slopes for runoff is a very important part of the site improvement aspect of the project. The area does get heavy storms, and we got to make sure all that runoff is properly channeled and fed to the proper area. So we're working with both our civil engineer and the landscape designer to design a system that accommodates that, and that includes both proper sloping, proper drainage, and also landscape strategies such as retention ponds, bioswales to delay and slow that runoff. In terms of the substrate for the farmers market, or let's say in the plaza, there's a variety of different types of pavements. We're showing decking in some area, wood decking in some areas, concrete. There is decomposed granite, both pedestrian and vehicular. Now, the exact layout of that is still is being designed, and that's part of the value engineering as well. And we're sort of considering the pros and cons. For instance, concrete is very smooth, easy for accessibility, but it's expensive. So decomposed granite is pervious. It allows rain to percolate through. So and that still allows for vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic to have activities on there. So that's an alternate. We're kind of, we want to create a balance of different things. You know, alongside that, there will also be room for softscape as well, planted areas. And so it's a sort of balancing act between activity and landscape and these sort of infrastructural and technical challenges of like runoff that we consider cohesively.
My name is Ara Chakrabarty, and I work for RCMS. I just want to point out one thing. First of all, thank you for the design you guys have done. We talked about the Resiliency Center, and let me make a couple of comments on that. As part of this design, my understanding that RCMS will have a storage space where we will keep emergency equipment. One thing I want to communicate to all of you that there is not enough emergency shelter in our area in case of a major emergency. This design addresses some of it. There will be a storage area for RCMS, and in case of a major disaster, RCMS will open up a triage center in this facility. I will tell you this, given the geographic locations and where we are, this center, this location, and the functionality of a resiliency center with a shower and a medical storage will significantly improve our ability to address and take care of us in case of a disaster when roads are closed, bridges is falling down. So thank you very much for this design. This will have a huge, significant positive impact in our community in case of a major disaster.
Thank you. Um, um, Great job, guys. I'd like to thank you, Kevin and Jamie, and the architectural team. It's amazing, and thank you so much for doing it for the community. And I have a small question about the restrooms. There's one of the restroom have two entrances. So as a single female, I'm very curious how two doors will be operated at the same time. So let's imagine I enter it from the building and somebody who knows the code trying to attempt to enter it from outside. Do you have any solutions for that?
Yeah, so that outside door would only operate, we're still figuring out the logistics with our hardware consultant, but that outside door is only opened when the other door is locked. So it won't be accessible if the building is open. But that's a great question. We would need to make sure that there's redundancy. There would be a deadbolt inside. When you're inside, when you go in from the cafe into that other door would have a deadbolt from the inside. So there's still some logistics that we are working out, but that exterior door was a request in the event where the building is not open, but there are, let's say, the farmer's market or whatnot, but that people would still have access to a bathroom.
Thank you. I'm worried about something you said about the area where the farmer's market would be and people will be walking and others driving and so on. And it's about the different ground coverings that are going to be there. We have, actually, you're in a zip code that's one of the oldest in the state. Sorry, everybody here, but I think you know the Sea Ranch is at the top of the list. And there are a lot of older people who have gone out to the community center on weekends and so on and walked around, some with help, some without. But those different surfaces, I think, can be dangerous to people.
Thank you for your question. Accessibility is one of the biggest priorities that we had going into the design of the project. So any surfaces, materials that we consider on the ground plane, we will definitely vet that product to make sure that it is accessibility friendly, wheelchair friendly. And the other component of that is the material transitions anywhere within the building, from the building to the exterior, and between different exterior materials. That threshold condition is incredibly important. So we are designing for minimizing that level change. In all cases, ideally zero level change, so that maybe you might feel a slightly different texture underfoot, but you're not going to trip. that is a critical element of the design that we're really focused on.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too, the board and the rebuilding committee, in almost every conversation when we were starting to talk about the design with James and Jennifer, that was one of, I would say, like the top 3 things that we kept stressing was the need to make sure that the surfaces can be easily traveled by people with wheelchairs, walkers, canes, those who just need a helping hand, right? And that the transition across those services, as James and Jennifer said, is going to be minimized as much as possible to avoid, tripping, stumbling, falling, and things of that nature.
I mostly just have a comment. When I filled out the survey, one of the options for priorities that I selected was a playground, having some sort of park component for children to play. So I would just like to encourage considering that when choosing hardscaping and landscaping. Children are going to play on whatever you put out there, whether we want them to or not. So I think we should just make sure that it is, and I know that it would become a headache to build it as an official park because of all sorts of requirements for surface requirements for cushioning and all of that, but just maybe keep that in mind because children are going to do what they're going to do.
Thanks, Julie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Stewart, and I have an interest in this, being a senior, for one. And I love the multi-purpose use of this center. I think that's fantastic. One of my main concerns is, of course, the senior lunches, being a part of that. We met during a meeting about the kitchen and all of that. So my concern is about the storage that we're going to have, because hauling food and supplies back and forth from Point Arena is really not sustainable. It's difficult, and Nancy knows. I mean, it's tough. So just sorry, it seems so loud. And so I'm just wondering how that storage area is going to work, how big it is, and for refrigeration and tables, prep tables, especially Meals on Wheels. I mean, just this last Tuesday, we did over 100 meals. So it's a lot to go back and forth. Just kind of interested in that.
Rebecca? So I guess I'll just start by saying that, we're planning to have locked storage space in the refrigerators and freezers and in the pantry and in the other storage area, specifically for coastal seniors. But we haven't yet designated any specific place within the building yet for coastal seniors or any other group or organization. We're just not at that point yet where we can say you're going to have this much and it's going to be here. But we do recognize the need. We understand its importance, not only just logistically, but also, again, to meet your funding requirements, right? There are certain things that you have to have. And so that has been top of mind. And we are going to make sure that we've got that set aside for you. But knowing the specifics of what that looks like and where it is and how big, I think is something that we're going to have to kind of tackle down the road a little bit as we evolve through the design process.
Yeah, and just to give some perspective, so the previous kitchen was about 260 square feet. We've increased, basically doubled the kitchen size to about 550. And then the previous storage size was about 70 square feet. And that dedicated pantry that we are showing now is about 115 square feet. So we've tried to maximize, using baker's racks, or just how can we maximize the amount of shelving that we can do so that we can have as many people to be able to use and store, because we know it is a lot to move things around. We've also been very mindful of, working with our kitchen consultant, widening the doors that enter into that space, and then potentially having a designated kitchen loading parking spot directly across, so that, that transaction is as seamless as possible.
Any more questions? Any more online?
Oh, thanks.
Sorry. Eileen Calloway. I'm wondering if you're going to have the model and the pictures on display anywhere in the community and when?
So, yeah, so the plan is to have these available during pay and take. June 15th. They'll be out during pay and take. Yeah, so just to reiterate what Karen said before, yes, thank you, Paula and Steve Smith and Leslie, and Janet and Dee for baking from scratch all those delicious treats in the back table, and also just for helping us organize this with logistics and pulling things together. So again, we can't do this without a lot of other people, so we thank you.
Were there any more questions? If not, then I'll wrap up. Thank you for coming and for being online. This recording will be made available on YouTube. And if you are not subscribed on the mailing list for the Sea Ranch Forum, if you are here, you can add your name to the list and I will add you to it. If you are online, you can send me an email at thesearanchforum@gmail.com and say subscribe, and I will do that. And I will send out a message when it is available online. The next scheduled forum is on Saturday, June 15th from 3 to 5 p.m. here and also online on Zoom. It will be a conversation with Menka Sethi as she has finished her first full fiscal year as our community manager at Sea Ranch and starting a new year with a new board. There are things to discuss, so we're going to do that. And one tradition that we do, I see it happening already, yay, is that we help by putting our chairs away before we leave. So thank you.